Hey, welcome to the Virtually Speaking podcast. My name is Pete Flecha, and I'm joined by my co-host, John Nicholson. John, how you doing, sir?
Great.
Very good, very good. So as you all know, it is launch time. VCF 9 is here, and we are kicking off a full episode dedicated to VCF. There's a lot to talk about, so many different changes from the platform, management, security. There's a lot to talk about. So we're gonna do the whole thing in a full series, but we want to start at the top with the leader of product management, Paul Turner. Paul, welcome to Virtually Speaking.
Hey, great to be here.
Yes, Paul. We spoke to you last year, just talking about VCF was really. Version 5 and previous versions was really great. It was when things were starting to come together for VCF in my perspective. But VCF 9 seriously has changed the game in many ways. I feel like we started with really good storage, really good networking, really good compute. And now we've evolved to this full platform that's comparable to what you could get like in the efficiency of a public cloud, as you would. So I really would love to get your perspective of what are you seeing as it pertains to VCF 9 when you talk to customers about what VCF 9 is?
Well, I think first off, it's perfect timing for us. If you think about the customers want to implement their own private cloud. VCF 9 is all about how do I implement a true, trusted private cloud that I can run it at scale. I can run it as efficiently as I can up on AWS or any other cloud service. And the software platform for that is VMware Cloud Foundation. VCF 9 makes that much easier to implement and much easier to implement at scale, both for the operations team and also for the automation side of things. So it's a very important release, but it's not just like today. We have customers that are highly successful with deploying VCF, and VCF 5.2 is our current release. So I just want to kind of touch on our last quarter results just to give you a sense of that. So we announced 47% year-on-year revenue, and that's an increase just for the vSphere VCF software base. In addition, we actually look at our top customers, and 70% of those customers now are VCF enabled. And that's amazing, right?
That's significant.
That's very significant, and it goes beyond that. That's only just touching the top 10,000. We've hundreds of thousands of customers. But I think the potential, clearly we've got customers who are buying into private cloud. They want to implement this at scale. VCF 9 and what we have in VCF today actually enable them to do that. Deliver an infrastructure at scale, deliver IaaS services, and deliver the automation platform, the multi-tenanted platform that they need.
Nice. So private cloud, I get this question from other folks, so I'll pivot it to you, is why now? Why private cloud?
Yeah, so I think that one of the big things is the cost factors. As customers have started looking at different services that they're running up on multiple cloud services, you're doing an on-demand kind of utilization per application. And actually, if you start measuring it, the cost factors of running those applications over time is actually a lot more costly than you can run in your own data center at scale with your own operations teams, so long as you have a cloud platform to get you there. And that's the key piece, is that the software gives you everything that could have been possible up on a cloud vendor. You do it with your people. You do it with your ability to scale your people and your operations, and you have a very predictable set of applications. So that's the first cost benefit. The second, though, is really one of kind of controls. The ability for you as a data center to actually enforce your own, it's kind of like a virtual data center border. And you say, this is what matters to me. These are my policies, my governance rules. This is how I want my storage, my network, my infrastructure, my firewall settings, my load balancer settings. You set up all of that, and you can run any of your applications against it. And that ability to actually have a governed kind of private cloud environment that you can be assured is compliant and trusted and secure. It's sovereign, something that we're hearing much more about
sovereign
lately.
cloud, yeah.
Sovereign cloud, which we're hearing a lot more about. Yeah. And of course, then it still has much better cost efficiencies than you see in a public cloud.
Yeah, usually when you want all that, you're not going to go to public cloud, right? Because you need all of this, but that also brings complexity. How does VCF address that?
Well, that's the big thing. Is we kind of, I like to think of it as we provide kind of a software-defined sovereign cloud, or private cloud, and that means that it's an operating model. That private cloud operating model you can actually run in your data center. You can run up on a public cloud service, so you can still get your sovereign boundaries that you want for your data center and run it up on AWS. Just run it on an AWS VCF version. And we just announced some new releases with AWS around that, something called Elastic VMware Service. So I think that's a big piece to it. But then inside in this software platform, what we have done is actually integrated all of the components you need. You mentioned leading software-defined networking, software-defined storage, software-defined compute. You've got NSX, vSAN, vSphere as appropriate. But all of the management, all the automation that you need to run that platform is part of it. And you can deliver it as a multi-tenanted platform out there to the customer. So the work that we've done both in 5.2, deliverable now and implementable now, and now with 9.0 that we have just released, is really super.
It's nice that you can package these sovereign clouds together, either for the customer to run that operation themselves or go through the partner or,
Yes.
work with, what do those partnerships look like? How many of those are there, generally speaking? Like, where are we going with that?
So it's actually a very interesting space. So the partnerships are, clearly all of the hyperscalers, right? So if I just think about the big three, right? Whether it's running on AWS, running on Google Cloud, running on Azure, we have services for every one of those, right? Azure VMware Service, Google Cloud VMware Service or VMware Engine, and the most recently released AWS Elastic VMware Service. But beyond that, we have more than 500 cloud service provider partners, and I think they're actually a very, very important space too. So one of the things we're seeing kind of change, and maybe it's because of political climate at the moment, but we're seeing a significant interest in something you mentioned, sovereign cloud. And that something, a capability that gives you jurisdictional control, regulatory compliance, meets the, whether it's, DORA needs that you have over in Europe, which are new security standards for financial regulations, or whether it's DISA-STIG requirements that you have into US federal government. You need all of that and the resilience and availability that you need as a platform. But sovereign cloud, you need to be able to provide a multi-tenanted cloud environment. And we have more than 70 of our CSPs, our cloud service provider, actually certified as sovereign cloud providers.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting just talking to customers who are under some of those regulatory frameworks, pharma and other areas where I just assumed people were mostly focused on the sovereign requirements of the country that they primarily were headquartered in. But a lot of these entities, they have a small entity in Germany, they have a small entity in Singapore, and they don't want to have to go hire a team in there and figure that out. So having those partners to lead that through has been very helpful.
Yeah, it's very important. And another aspect of it is really the regulatory compliance. So it's not just, jurisdictional control. It's not just where you may locate data.
The passport colors of who's managing it matter.
Who's managing it matters. The passport colors absolutely matter. And I think that's a big concern. And that's why one of the areas that we see is our telco providers. We've actually been very successful working with our leading telco providers. So think of, Vodafone or Oxygen over in the UK, right? VMO2, Virgin Media Oxygen. These are leading providers who actually built all of their stack actually on us, British Telecom, others. They are the perfect providers to actually deliver sovereign cloud services. They're trusted by the local region. They are regionally controlled and under the same jurisdiction control. And they have the capability, capacity, skill set, and people to actually run cloud environments. And they are all certified as sovereign cloud providers with us. So it's kind of cool.
No, that's a great story in terms of being able to expand out and drive that together.
Yeah. So this is a VCF 9 series as we're talking about, and I'd love to hear just from your perspective. We're going to dive deeper into with the various components, but what are we doing in terms of innovation at the core?
Yeah, so I think you're going to hear a lot about what we're doing to automate infrastructure, what we're doing to make installs easier, to integrate it for the, as an integrated platform. We've really radically improved and simplified the platform. But ultimately for me, innovation matters right down at the IaaS stack. What are you doing within storage, within networking, within compute? That's what drives lasting innovation that is wildly different. That's why virtualization mattered 25 years ago. Yeah. And that's why what we're doing now matters. And so there's a couple of things that I just am really excited about. So I want to see GPU as a service. I want to see every one of those sovereign cloud providers able to become a sovereign AI provider. I want to see the ability for that means we must deliver GPU as a service. We must be able to take workloads, run them. They can be running PyTorch applications against a runtime infrastructure. And I decide to upgrade the server. I'll just migrate in vMotion magically the application and everything pops up on the other side, the person who's running the PyTorch inferencing doesn't notice. It's the basics. It's the really simple stuff
I don't
that we
need to
could do
go
before.
open change control and file tickets and notify people and schedule things.
Just think about that. That's how we change virtualization. Virtualization was changed, I think, not just when we could virtualize a server. That was desktop virtualization. It changed when we could do actually cluster management of things. We could do standardization of things. We could do non-disruptive upgrades and patching and things like that because we had the ability to do vMotion of workloads without any disruption. We can do that for GPU workloads. We can do it without any impact to these third party. You can be running whatever inferencing services you want on top. You could be running a 70 billion parameter model, and this thing will just move. So that you can hear I'm excited about that. Absolutely. I'm also excited though about our memory tiering one. So inside in the vSphere side of things, that is actually showing, we think it will actually drive about 40% further density of VMs on platforms. So again, cost savings. I know you guys probably think we increase cost a lot. We are very conscious on how we actually drive optimal cost for you as a customer and actually get more and more cost efficiency for you.
I remember one customer that doing the very first virtualization deployment, and they had a data center full of blades, and someone said, I don't understand the point of this. Why am I paying for the software? And I just started yanking all of the blades out that we had decommissioned after we had P2V'd and started piling the hardware on the floor. And they're like, okay, point received. But these improvements on the core stack, hitting 40% better density, pushing storage efficiency, all this stuff, this is adding up to real money. Like when you start physically thinking of all the stuff you can displace.
It absolutely does. And you think about the GPU environments, and a lot of companies out there, and probably many of the companies we're talking to now, have actually invested large amounts of capital spend into these environments. They're too often stovepipes. They're sitting there poorly utilized. They're down in the same 22, 23% utilization of a GPU server, where every GPU server costs you 100 to 150 grand minimum. You got a cluster of them, and it's massively, massively costly.
We drove past a McLaren dealership on the way here, and I'm just imagining one McLaren, like 8 of those in a server. Like this is,
It's funny though, because this is the same conversation we had years ago with just compute in general, like all these isolated resources that
3% utilization on CPU.
And here it is again. It's the same thing with GPUs, and it's like.
So I think it's very cool. So that's another pace of innovation. The other one that I'm actually really pleased with is the vSAN, right? If I talk about storage, network, and compute, but I think on the vSAN side, we've had huge success with vSAN, but we also re-architected vSAN with ESA, which was basically our enhanced storage architecture based on NVMe drives, basically persistent solid-state media. But we are seeing predictable latencies of less than a millisecond latencies. Now, traditional storage, you'd say 5 milliseconds was the benchmark. The new solid-state media, the flash storage arrays, 1 millisecond is where you need to be, or below 1 millisecond. Right. We are confidently below that. This is a platform that you can it's included in your VCF sale. All you have to do is build it on the scale-out clusters you already have. And it's got much better resiliency characteristics, because instead of being redundant on failure of a single host and the controllers within a single host, right? Because a shared storage array is maybe it's got 2 controllers in it with failover. You've actually got distributed failover across a set of hosts, which may be a 12-host cluster, or you could go 16. Much better resiliency characteristics, and you get all the performance benefits, and you get it at lower cost. So I think that's exciting too. So there's cool things within the core. I could keep going on. I'm excited about.
Well, you touched a little bit on the compute, and we could spend an hour talking about the storage side. Anything top of mind for networking?
For the networking side, it is about bringing VPCs everywhere. Too often we kind of thought of networking as like this extra layer that it was somehow interesting but separate from running a virtualized compute environment. It shouldn't be. When you're deploying an application, you should be deploying an application actually with a virtual boundary around that application, so that you've got isolation and protection, so that your users there can actually set firewall rules, load balancing rules, any of those kind of policy setting rules, or they could do them for a group of applications. But that's the way we should think about it. If we care about security, we care about VPCs. And so what we're doing there is bringing it in natively into the platform. And I think it's particularly interesting. It's nice for any of the vCenter people. Most people are using vCenter, right? And as they're kind of playing in vCenter, they'll actually be able to do now native VPC setup. So think of it as just like you did the distributed switch before, and we changed the market of the distributed switches. That was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're doing it again now for networking. We're going to change it by bringing VPCs in natively.
Yeah, that's a game changer for a lot of operations. I mean, even failovers or disaster recovery, dealing with things and just being able to have a VPC right inside of the vCenter console without having to reach out to your networking team and all that. And yeah, so I feel like that's a huge game changer. I'd have to say it's no longer the platform for just VMs. Would you agree?
It's definitely not. So that's the other one that I like as kind of one of the biggest innovations. I don't know, both of you, I'm guessing John has probably tried deploying Kubernetes and all of the services that I need to actually deploy Kubernetes. But you need to have your storage interface, your CSI interface set up, your CNI, your network interface. You need to have your Harbor, your registry service or some kind of registry service, a load balancer service or something like Contour, Prometheus, a monitoring service. You may want to stick telegraph agents into each of the hosts.
No, all the different like lifecycle components. I'm like, this feels like OpenStack all over
It
again.
does
There's
feel
so
like
many different things.
I got service mesh so that I can get the different containers to talk to them because I'm building now this function-based application with different containers that need to be able to interoperate with each other. Maybe I want to actually do desired state deployment, so I have a Flux configuration and Helm charts that I'm managing. The thing is difficult. It shouldn't be. No. So that's one of the things that I'm actually really excited. So in 9.0, VMs and containers are native. Kubernetes is native, but it's not just Kubernetes is native. All of those services that I just mentioned, whether you're talking about Harbor, Contour, Prometheus, Telegraph, Istio, Flux CD, all out of box, managed by us, very simple setup. It changes the game in terms of you shouldn't be running islands of things. You should run things, and those things should come ready for applications. They shouldn't be continue to stitch them together afterwards. So my goal is we're going to be the best platform for running VMs. Well, we are that already today. Right, yeah. But we're going to be the best platform, we are the best platform, I'd contend, for running containers and to be able to orchestrate all of that with Kubernetes so developers can do and manage things just like they could on any other agile cloud platform. They can use Git managed operations, they can save and store their images, they can do pipelining of their app and deployments, all directly on top of vSphere 9.
This is kind of
VCF 9.
This is fascinating because my first interactions with Kubernetes years ago is there were all kinds of like missing constructs of like moving storage and very basic things that we've had in vCenter forever. Right. And now it feels like we're kind of going the other way to where all those capabilities are coming in. And I'm like seeing things in namespaces that I'm like, wait, I wanted that in the DRS resource group. Like it's become not just a first-class citizen, but it's leading in capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned on the storage side of things, right? Storage integration for actually even, first off, the Kubernetes community said, you don't need any persistent storage.
Right, that was the first. That was the first
where that world comes from. But the world is sometimes you can get away without persistent storage, but frequently you do. Any database needs persistent storage. So then you had CSI providers, and then it's a mess trying to work out how do you match that with arrays. Even way back in version 7 of our releases, we had that natively in the platform. And every one of our storage vendors already had CSI support because we plugged it in.
We've been working at at this for like 10 years inside of VMware, and it's really interesting to see. Not only the world has changed so much. I mean, in terms of technology, I mean, we're up to these QLC drives that are just insanely fast, and just with ransomware, the world is changing in terms of threats that are out there, and it's exciting to see VCF sort of like basically transition the workloads that it supports, but the use cases that it supports, and it's really evolving with the time that we've been here at VMware.
Yeah, and I think if you think about that, right, it's got native containers and VM platform, but that means that it's actually easier to run your AI services. So I mentioned GPU as a service, but now that I've got Kubernetes in there, I got containers in there, I can actually take AI workloads, because many of the AI workloads actually are all container-ready things. So if I go to NVIDIA and the AIE, maybe we'll pull down their services, run it straight in our platform. You can actually run all of the ecosystem of applications actually built on top, knowing that you have an infrastructure that is non-disruptive, that is maintainable by you without any disruption to end-user applications because of stuff like we did with vMotion. I mean, it's powerful as you kind of pull all that stuff together. A lot more we're doing, of course, to make that infrastructure easy to use and easy to manage. And yeah, it's overall it's an exciting release. I think it's an exciting time. I think hopefully we'll see a lot more customers deploy. But the fact that I've got 70% of the top 10,000 already ready to go is excellent to see.
I'm not an official scorekeeper, but that sounds like a pretty good number.
Yeah, I'll take it. Absolutely. Well, Paul, thanks for joining us on our first episode of the VCF 9 series, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Sure. Thanks a million.